Hello, church family. I'm excited to be able to bring you another midweek devotional. My name is Tonya, for those who don't know me. And I have to tell you, I tried really hard to do this without my glasses. I even made large font because I can't do it without my notes either. Tried that too. And I can't see. I'm one of those over 50s, and so I really need my glasses. And I don't have good lighting here in my home, so you got the glare off my glasses. I'm sorry. I need Drew and Michelle, but they live far away. So I'm going to do it, and you're going to have the little glare, and we're all going to be good about it. It doesn't matter. So I'm going to follow up on Pastor Robin's amazing message from Sunday entitled Join Me at the Table. And if you haven't had a chance to watch that, please go and watch it. It was really well done. Love our pastors. Her text was Acts chapter 2, verses 42 through 47. And the author of Acts, the Apostle Luke, is laying out the four markers of this new church, this new Christian church that is starting since Jesus has been resurrected. And so I'm just going to read verse 42. It says, all the believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship and to sharing in meals together and to prayer. These are the four markers of the new church. And I want to look at how have we been doing on these markers in this pandemic, in this current era of our world. Start with teaching. Pastors Tim and Robin have done a fantastic job of continuing to instruct us in the Word every Sunday from their basement. They've continued to bring us the Word, continue to encourage us to get in and to read. Tim Sr. has provided study notes so that we can take a deeper dive on the sermons. We've had midweek devotionals all through this pandemic. And even beyond what TFH SF has done, there are podcasts and messages, so much teaching going on. And actually in this pandemic, we've had more teaching reaching more households than ever before. And so we've done a really good job on the teaching of the Word. And then prayer together. This is another important marker. And I know in our small group, and I know many small groups that come together in Zooms and just spent time in prayer with each other. We have an updated prayer list every week. Thank you, Donna. Our group texts each other's prayer requests. We're able to call each other, reach out and pray. On the app, there's the prayer and praise. You can send in prayer requests to the church. I know that people are praying because I have sent them in and I've gotten responses. So people are praying. We're working on prayer. We've had a great chance during this pandemic to work on our own personal prayer life, to develop our own conversation with Jesus. And I hope you've really taken advantage of that. So teaching of the Word, prayer has been strong. And then another marker, fellowship. And like Pastor Robin shared, fellowship here is talking about something even deeper than friendship. It's that feeling of family. And while we haven't been able to do that as well because we can't be in person, we've still done a pretty good job with fellowship, having Zoom meetings and phone calls and reaching out to each other that are in hearing and being able to talk about our needs and our concerns and our anxieties, taking care of people's financial needs or giving gifts, leaving door drops to say, I care about you and I'm here. So we're still in family with each other. We're still reaching out and having fellowship. And then the fourth marker, which Pastor Robin talked about quite in depth on Sunday, was that breaking of bread together in each other's homes, breaking of donut holes together on the porch steps. That's been completely non-existent for 3 months. We've not been able to do that. One of my favorite theologians, N.T. Wright, says that these four marks of the church, the teaching, the fellowship, breaking of bread, and prayer, go together, and you can't leave even one of them out without causing damage to the whole. Every one is necessary. As a therapist and a member of the mental health community, I can tell you that we're seeing the damage of this isolation. People's anxiety is so high, depression, grief. The suicide rate has been climbing in certain areas. So damage is being done. We need each other. We literally are hardwired for relationships. Think about, why do we do things like frantically search to see how many likes we got on our social media? Or why did my husband buy a couple pairs of skinny jeans after joining the worship team? Because we want to fit in. We want to be liked. We want to develop relationships with people. And this isn't that hard to understand, actually, because if you go to the very first book of the Bible, the very first chapter, it says that we were created in the image of God. Well, God is very relational. The Trinity itself, God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, are in intimate fellowship with each other all the time. So if we're created in God's image, it makes sense that we too long for relationship. We long for companionship. In chapter 2 of Genesis, it says that God said it was not good for man to be alone, so he created him a companion. So we're created for community. The greatest commandment is to love the Lord our God with all our heart, soul, and mind, and to love others as ourselves. How do we do that outside of community, outside of relationship? Not very well. So we are needed. We need that companionship. Think about what brings you to church. What brought you the first time to the church? Was it bus ads? People jumping up and down on the steps, smiling, waving signs, saying, oh, check that out. Was it somebody invited you? There's a plethora of reasons that can bring us to a church building. But what brings us back? It's feeling welcomed, feeling seen, feeling cared about. And then what causes us to want to plug in, to become a part of the family? See, that sense of unity, that sense of, I belong here. These are my people. Witnessing and experiencing the unconditional love and interaction of Christ followers is not like anything we ever experience in the world. If you think about it, you might have relationships with friends who don't know the Lord, or relationships with friends at work that maybe don't know the Lord. And you can have good friendships, but there's something different about sitting with people who have that same commonality of Christ, who love Jesus, who want to serve Jesus. And you may have nothing else in common but Jesus. And there's something powerful that takes place in your interaction. There's something that happens in our spirits that go, yes, this is good, it's nurturing. We need each other, and I believe we need this now in our world like never before in our history. We must come out of our isolation and come together in loving, accepting environment that's centered around Jesus. The enemy also knows how powerful these relationships are, how coming out of isolation and coming together, how meaningful that is to us. If you think about how lions hunt, when lions get together and they hunt a pack of antelope, they don't attack the whole pack at once. That would be crazy. They would be very unsuccessful. And so what they do is they try to get one antelope off by its side. They try to separate it from the pack, and then they wear it down and pounce. Becomes easy pickings. Same thing the enemy does to us. He loves us to be divided. He loves us to be isolated. And then he wears away on our faith. He wears us out until we're exhausted and we're tired and we're alone, and then he pounces. So we need to come out of quarantine. And the opportunity has come. The opportunity is now here for us to return to our small groups, and in a few weeks to return to our church building. I can't wait. But some are very afraid. And they're fearful of what this might mean. We have a lot of confusing stories happening in the media today, and I encourage you not to listen too much to the media, because there's a lot of different messages being sent around. Is COVID still lurking out there? Am I going to catch it? Are we going to have a resurgence of cases as we start to come out of quarantine? So there's a lot of fear. A new title I've been hearing in the mental health world is the quarantine state of mind. And this is the idea that even as we come out and we start being outside of our homes and interacting with people again, that we're going to still be in a quarantine state of mind internally and be very fearful, not want to touch, not want to get too close. Hey, keep your distance. I was walking the other day, and there was a man coming in my direction quite a ways off. And long before he ever got to me, he chose to cross over 4 lanes to the other side of the road so that he wouldn't pass me on my side. People are still very afraid. If you're like me, you're not only managing your own emotions and your own thoughts around COVID-19, but you're also having to manage the emotions and the feelings of those in your household. In my home, we have 6 people living here, and we literally are from one end to the other on the spectrum on this. From, hey, it's all cool, I don't care, let's go, to, you guys are going too much. I'm afraid you're going to bring it home. So we've had to set up guidelines out of respect and love for our own family members, including designating bathrooms. And then we check in ever so often over family meals, see where people are at, how they're feeling. This is part of honoring and respecting one another. People are in different places regarding COVID. So yes, I think we can all agree we need to come out of isolation. We need to come back together. But how are we going to do this? I want to share some specific steps to managing your anxiety and your emotions through this transition. First, let me speak to the gung-ho and ready to go people. The people who are like, let's go, I can't wait, I want to jump in, I can't wait to get to small group. I want to encourage you that before you rush into your small group and before you rush into church and hug everybody in sight, take a pause. You may have no fear, but ask this question: what does my brother need? What does my sister need? Because in a community that loves and honors and respects each other, we need to take everybody's wishes into account. Some people are very nervous about hugging. And if we just rush in for the hug, we actually put them in an awkward position, because if they tell us no, they are going to feel guilty, feel bad about that. If sometimes they relent and they let us hug them, but they feel a little angry, a little regretful for that. So some people won't even come back together because they don't want to have to deal with that scenario. So we need to move slow. We need to respect where people are at. We might need to stick with some air hugs for a while. And I know, I'm a hugger. So those of you like me, it's like, really? But that's part of loving and honoring and respecting one another. For those of you who have anxiety about returning, what that's going to look like, I want to share a couple of things. First, step into it. If you have anxiety about it, even thinking about it kind of makes your heart palpitate, step into it. Step into your anxiety. Don't judge yourself. Oh, I shouldn't feel this way. I'm a Christian. No, just step into it. You feel anxious? That's normal. A lot of people are feeling anxious about this. A lot of people are uncertain. What does it mean? What to do? So step into your fear. Don't judge yourself. The second thing is make a list. So step into it and make a list. What are you fearful of? As you think about returning to your small group or returning to church in person, what are the things that cause you anxiety? Write them down, make a list. And then ask questions. So step into the anxiety, create a list, and ask questions. Does your list, is it rooted in fear or is it rooted in fact? What's truth here? So step in and ask the questions. I know there are many different sources of information out there on COVID, and some are in exact contradiction to one another. So you have to choose your source wisely. But there seems to be some general agreement that social distancing, wearing masks, washing our hands, not touching our faces, that these things have been effective in not spreading the virus. So what are your fears based on? Ask those questions, and then ask, is our church taking precautions to meet these concerns? If you have not yet listened to the town hall that Tim and Robin did, I highly encourage you, go to the app, go to the website, go to town hall meeting and watch it, because they addressed a lot of these concerns and talked about the precautions they're going to take as we come back into the church. So having your list in hand, go watch the town hall meeting, see if they answered those questions. I also know that the small group leaders have been versed on steps to take to make people feel safe as they come back into their small groups. But if after you've watched that and you've looked through that, if you still have questions, ask them. Send emails, reach out to your small group leader, reach out to another leader in the church and ask your questions. It's better to take some steps forward than to sit in isolation or to pull back in fear and not move forward. So ask questions. No one is going to judge you. No one's going to judge. No question is dumb. Every question is important. We are a non-judgmental church. So your question will be taken serious. So don't be afraid to ask. The thing is that when we're anxious, that feeling of anxiousness, we don't feel grounded, right? Everything's kind of swirling around, and we can't think clearly. We're kind of all over the place. And so having some boundaries, having some guidelines actually helps bring some to the anxiety, gives us some clear path. So ask the questions, find out. So once you've stepped into it and you've created a list and you've asked your questions, now lay them before God and pray. God is not in the dark. COVID is not something lurking out there, invisible, unseen to God. God sees everything. He sees us, He knows us, and He loves us. God created us for community, so He wants us to be in community. So we need to pray, we need to trust Him, we need to reach out to Him. What does He say? Pastor Robin said that true community is a community that we can trust, that people we can rely on, people who have our backs. You know, one of the reasons I trust our pastors, and they did not tell me to say this is off the cuff here at the moment, but it's true. One of the reasons I trust them is because Pastor Tim and Robin are people of prayer. They are on their knees and they are praying for wisdom and guidance, direction. They don't want to do things their way. They truly want to do things God's way. And so those are leaders I can get behind and I can trust. So pray, ask God what He's saying to you. What is He saying for you? God, what do you want from me? What do you want from my family? And then allow the Lord to dictate your steps, not your fear. Allow God to dictate your steps. In Philippians 4:6, it says, don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. So the word there, don't worry about anything, the word anything means anything. Don't worry, fear, have anxiety about anything, but instead take everything. The word everything there means everything to God in prayer. Take everything to Him in prayer. Pray to Him. So ask Him very specifically, God, what do you want me to do? Here's my fears. I've made my list. I've looked at what the church is doing. I've seen the precautions that they're taking. Now, what do you want from me? What are you asking of me? Let God speak to you. If we continue in that, in Philippians 4:6, it says, tell God what you need and thank Him for all He has done. What has God done for you through COVID? What has He done through the pandemic? When you've walked through difficult times in your life in the past, what did God do? Where was He? Start thanking Him, having an attitude of gratitude for all that God has done for you. And it says, then you will experience God's peace, which exceeds anything we can understand. The world is full of fear, full of anxiety, full of grief. But when we walk and we lay everything before God in prayer, when we thank Him for all that He's done, then we experience His peace, which passes all understanding. And His peace guards our hearts and it guards our minds as we live in Christ Jesus. Choose then to trust Him. Then you have to choose. So here's truth. Here's God's word. Here's what He said to you. Now you have to choose to trust Him. You may feel anxiety even as you step out. So even as you've done all these things and you say, okay, I see God's clear path. I see what He's telling me to do, and I believe He wants me to go. But then as you step out, you might start to have some real anxiety. You get into your car and you start driving to small group or to slow and 19th, and you start to feel palpitations in your heart. You start to get a little sweaty palms or sick to your stomach, and you get nervous again. It's okay. Embrace it. Don't judge it. I'm feeling anxious. This is really a little bit scary. We haven't done this for 3 months. I'm nervous. I'm anxious. It's okay. Step into that. Embrace that. Don't judge yourself. And then breathe. It's okay. This is normal. Just breathe. You may have to do that for a few minutes. And speak truth. I prayed about this, and this is what God told me to do. I can trust Him. He says He's with me always. He's watching over me. He's protecting me. He is my guide, my protector. He's my God. So I'm okay. I can do this. And you may have to do that again when you pull into the parking lot. You may have to do it again as you're walking up the steps. It's okay. It's okay. Don't judge yourself. Step in, breathe, speak truth. The more experience that you have in stepping out and stepping into your anxiety and managing it, the less it's going to be. The next time it'll feel less, and the next time it'll feel less. So allow yourself to feel it, step in, breathe, and then speak the truth. Now let me be very clear on what I'm saying here. I am saying trust Jesus, pray, seek His face. I'm not saying throw all caution to the wind and just dive in. I'm not saying that. very clearly take proper precautions. Our church is doing a great job of taking proper precautions, of following the CDC guidelines. So take those proper precautions and trust Jesus with the rest. And lastly, if after taking all these steps of walking through this, stepping in, creating your list, asking the questions, praying to God, you still don't feel comfortable meeting in person, it's okay. Because we're a body that loves each other. We don't judge each other. We accept each other right where we are. And so there's still going to be some online services happening in the evenings on Sunday. That's still going to happen. And you can still partake in that. Reach out to your leaders until you're ready to come back in person. It's okay. No judgment here. We will get through this time together as a body, as a community. I love you guys. I cannot wait to see you. God bless.